The war had been over for 6 days when Commander Kryn of the Veiltheri Confederacy first saw her. She sat alone in the corner of the neutral zone medical bay on Outpost Theta 7, a battered human soldier with a wrapped left arm, a scorched shoulder plate, and eyes that stared at nothing in particular. The battle for the Karen Pass had chewed up 3 full battalions, 2 Veiltheri, 1 human, and spat them all out equally broken. But the humans had held the pass. That was the part nobody on Kryn's side had yet fully digested. Kryn was not a cruel commander by his species standards. He was efficient, practical, and like most Veiltheri officers who had studied humanity from a safe analytical distance, he had developed the kind of comfortable contempt that comes from never truly being proven wrong, until you are. He crossed the bay in long, deliberate strides, his blue-gray uniform still immaculate despite the aftermath of war. His aide, a junior officer named Peleth, trailed behind him with a datapad. The human looked up when Kryn stopped in front of her. She had amber eyes. Tired ones. Sergeant Zara? Peleth read from the pad. Human. 4th Combined Arms. Decorated twice. Wounded during the final push at the Eastern Ridge. Kryn studied her the way a scholar studies a mildly interesting fossil. He noted the bandaging, the way she favored her right side, the dark circles beneath her eyes that spoke of days without sleep. She was smaller than most Veiltheri. They all were. Softer in the jaw, narrower in the frame. The Veiltheri had always privately found it remarkable that humans bothered fighting at all. You were among the soldiers who held the pass, Kryn said. It was not a question. Zara met his gaze. Yes, sir. With that. He gestured at her arm. The dismissal in the gesture was surgical, not a jab, but a scalpel. A small, precise reduction of her effort to a joke the universe had played on itself. Peleth looked at his boots. Several other soldiers in the bay had gone still. 2 human medics paused mid-task. A Veiltheri recovery tech in the far corner slowly set down his instruments. Zara did not answer immediately. She looked at her wrapped arm. Then she looked back at Kryn. And she said nothing. That was the moment, though Kryn would not understand it until later, when the real danger arrived. Not in raised voices or clenched fists. Not in the hot, predictable language of anger. The danger arrived in the quality of Zara's silence. It was not the silence of someone who had no response. It was the silence of someone who had already calculated every response and found them all beneath her. Kryn mistook it for submission. He turned to Peleth and made a quiet remark in Veiltheri, something about the peculiar stubbornness of a species that sends its injured to hold mountain passes. It was said with the light tone of a man who expects to be quietly agreed with. The Veiltheri recovery tech in the corner did not agree. He said nothing either, but he set down his instruments with a careful deliberateness that Kryn did not notice. One of the human medics, a young woman named Torres, looked at Zara with an expression that asked a question. Zara gave the smallest shake of her head. Not yet. Not worth it. Torres went back to work. But her jaw was tight. Over the next hour, Kryn conducted his inspection of the medical bay, logging recovery rates and cross-species triage protocols. He was thorough and professional, as always. He did not think again about the human in the corner. That evening, in the Veiltheri officers' mess, Kryn mentioned the encounter as an aside, a small color commentary on the strangeness of their human allies. He described the bandaged arm. The silence. He used the word pitiable in Veiltheri, which carries a shade of meaning that does not translate cleanly but lands somewhere between sad and absurd. General Orvith, who commanded the entire Veiltheri contingent and who had spent 4 years fighting alongside humans rather than reading reports about them, put down his cup. That soldier's name, Orvith said quietly. What was it? Kryn checked his memory. Zara. A sergeant. Orvith was quiet for a moment. Then, Sergeant Zara held the eastern ridge for 11 hours after taking a fragmentation round to her left forearm. Her squad was at 40% strength. She coordinated 2 artillery redirections, walked 3 wounded soldiers back through live fire, and personally disabled a Karen relay tower so we could push the signal jamming that let the rest of the operation succeed. He paused. She did this with that. The table had gone quiet. I know her name, Orvith continued, because I recommended her for a commendation this morning. Before I knew she was in your medical bay. He looked at Kryn with the steady patience of a man who has made peace with how long education takes. What I am trying to understand, Commander, is what you thought you were looking at. Kryn had no answer. The question sat in the air like a stone dropped in still water, and the rings spread outward in silence. 3 days later, there was a small, unofficial ceremony in the neutral courtyard of Outpost Theta 7. General Orvith presented Sergeant Zara with the Veiltheri Cross of Valor, the first time in the Confederacy's history it had been awarded to a non-Veiltheri soldier. The citation was read aloud in both languages. Commander Kryn stood at the back of the gathered crowd, out of uniform obligation rather than enthusiasm. He watched Zara receive the medal with the same quiet economy she had brought to everything else, a nod, a few words, no performance. Afterward, as the crowd dispersed, Zara passed within a few feet of him. She did not look for him. She did not pointedly avoid him. She simply passed him the way you pass a feature of the landscape, something that exists, that you have already accounted for, that requires nothing further from you. Kryn stood there for a moment after she had gone. He thought about the silence in the medical bay. He replayed it now with different ears and heard what had actually been in it, not submission, not ignorance, not the blankness of someone with nothing to say. He heard restraint. The practiced, disciplined restraint of a person who has learned that some victories do not need to be announced. Some people are not worth the words. He had ridiculed the wounded soldier. The silence that followed had been the real danger, because it had revealed, with perfect clarity, exactly which one of them had not understood what they were looking at. And it had not been Zara. In the Veiltheri historical record of the Karen campaign, a footnote was added 2 years later. It noted that the human forces had suffered the highest casualty rates of any Allied contingent and had nonetheless achieved every assigned objective. A junior historian appended a single editorial observation, which the senior board elected to keep. They are not remarkable because they do not break. They are remarkable because they already know they will, and they go anyway.